And I decided that I would have a look at this dragon that I started. And it took me into a place not only of story, but possibly just as important, which is, what is it that creatives are doing? And what am I doing, I guess, I suppose is pertinent. It's the question. So I'd done the outline of the drawing of the dragon several weeks ago, possibly a month or so ago. And because I am obsessed by dragons, really, and my wife kept on saying to me, why haven't you got dragons in the first stories? And I said, well, they just didn't appear. And then I thought, well, maybe I should be showing my dragon drawings and my obsession about where I see dragons in trees and wooden limbs and, I don't know, in branches and things. And I've got several here, actually, some of the original first drawings. So there's one there. So this is an early drawing of a dragon. This is actually, it's got a ridiculously long name, which is almost unpronounceable, but she's the mother of all dragons. And I kind of like the father of, the mother of. And it was me beginning to look at how I could draw the textures of dragon. And how does that work for me as an artist? But I also realized the thing about dragons is that they have textures and they have a lot of activity, shapes, forms on them. So that's a technical consideration. But what if there's more to it than technical? So this dragon, of course, which is now on a lot of videos and things, was the first really big dragon, but it was the concept of this dragon in my stories that we've got this huge, no, it's not huge until I add something that we can give it a sense of size and proportion. So if I have as I do here, the city of dragons, then at once we know that this is enormous. So when I was drawing the dragon, I was literally just thinking, this is a really interesting drawing. There are mountains, this is a big dragon. And so it went on until eventually in drawing it, began to get the story. And that actually this dragon had been asleep for more than the years that anyone could count. And that conversations became stories about a dragon that lived in a place that I call the spheres of the claw. And that actually the spheres of the claw were where people believed, in my world, dragons were asleep underneath the volcanoes. And that's what the volcanoes were. They were the steam and the fire of the sleeping dragons. I kind of liked that. So that I stuck with that idea. And then eventually I began, as I was drawing it, so don't forget, I'm still drawing it and building. And I thought, well, actually, if it's been there for so long, people start to come to see it. They become pilgrims of this sleeping dragon. I liked that idea. That there was a giant egg bigger than a city. I liked that idea. And then I realized that what was actually happening in my head is that the dragon, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, on the lens, but the dragon's tail is around the city. And of course, once I knew that, I knew that this dragon was protecting, not doing the opposite. It wasn't asleep waiting to cause devastation. It was asleep, and yet it was protecting. So when I built the city as a drawing, in my head I began to draw images, concepts, ideas of who are the dragons in my stories. They're kind, they're holders of the light, so they are on our side. And if that's the case, what am I going to do with that? So this became a major drawing. I mean, literally, I think it's nearly 300 hours of drawing. And I haven't yet turned it into a painting. But the concept was massive. And it takes me to where I am today, what I want to talk about today as I'm drawing, which is, what is drawing? What is this process of creativity that we engage in and watch? And as I was drawing my dragon this morning, which I'm going to go back into now, make sure she can be seen. There. That what is it is going on here? So I'm using a number of really small pens. So that's technical. But what if there is more to it than that? So when I started this morning about just after 6, I started to get myself into the who is this dragon? And those of you who know me know that I'm a storyteller. I have spent 30 years travelling around being a storyteller, and around about being as late as 15 years in, and I'd done a lot of storytelling. Something happened which is critical to what I'm explaining today. I was very relaxed and I was telling a story. I think it's a story called The Blind Boy, which I'm about to record actually. And I stepped out of the story and had a conversation with the audience. And when I went back in, I was both myself, the storyteller, but I was also this boy who was blind. And I remembered, what I'd said to them was that when I was about 10, 11 years old, I remember walking around my Victorian house in Bristol. I don't think anybody was in, but I don't remember that bit. And I put a blindfold, I think it was my mum's scarf. I put it around my head and over my eyes and began to wander around this 5-story house, blind. And it was a sharpening of sensations, and it took me to somewhere. So in my storytelling, when I returned to the story, I had just told them that I had a sensation of what it was like to be blind. Nowhere near what it's like really to be blind full time, but it gave me an open door. So that open door and stories that I've told about the blind man who came to see me and felt the energy of work, who had the skill, because he was blind, to have his other senses sharper, keener, and he would trust them. I found that fascinating. And when I've been told very seriously by a course leader, a lady who I have huge respect, fantastic sculptress, who had now taken over the reins of running courses in a college down in Sussex, when she had stopped me and said, "Look, can you hear the creative conversations that have gone on here in this room, in this studio for 60, 70 years? The walls are thick with it." And all of that led me to what I'm about to say about today, which is that I had started drawing my dragon, and there's a technical side to this. How much light do you leave? How much darkness do you add? But there is something else. As I'm drawing, I get a sensation that I'm drawing on their face. And then I get a sensation that I am that face, that eye is my eye, looking at me. And then I get this idea that comes out of the thoughts I've had that I was just sharing, that how much of that then drives the way I draw, or any artist draws, that they get this, if you're that open, even if I'm talking to you, if I am that open, if the artist is pouring in not technique, but emotion, connection, creativity, if they are following something that is beyond technical, that goes down the pen and drives the ink, the way I hold the pen, the way the artist pushes the brush, the paint, and that then gets left on the canvas, becomes part of the canvas. And if my process for me, that works for me, is to use my storytelling skills of opening doors, of becoming part of it, then that drives the illustration, the ink, the work, the questions. So this dragon sits here looking at me, and I have a grandson who is very busy. He's always busy doing something. No sooner have we sat down to do one thing and he'd say, "Baba, can we do?" And his mum and dad will say, "Rex." And that meant, just do that. So he never stops. But, and I may have said this before, so forgive me, very recently, in the last few months, so he's 5, very recently, in the last few months, he'll sit down with me like he did a couple of days ago and he'd say, Papa, can we have a story? Can we have a story? And then he is silent and he is still and he listens for 15, 25 minutes, half an hour to a story. And when it finishes, when we've shared that experience, he'll look at me and say, "Can I have another story, Papa?" So something is going on that calms. And because I work in schools, or have done in the past, and they are really struggling here in Britain, whether this is the COVID effect, whether it's the mobile phone technology effect, I don't know. I have suspicions that it's both. But the technique, the ancient form of narrative, of being present, and then when you are present with the child, the children, the people, they come along with you to this other place, a form of meditation. But it's also a form of transference of wonder that's held within the experience of the teller, or in this case, the artist. I'm talking to you. I'm very aware that you are there. That's important. Even though I can't see you, I can hear you. But I am here too, in this drawing, and I am, without any cleverness, I am the drawing. Now that sounds weird in a way, but if for me, as a dyslexic, all those senses, and going back to the concept of the blind boy in the scarf, and the old man who feels the energy of artwork, if those senses are reawakened in the present day audience of children struggling with technology and what it does, We're at a time of real, huge, fundamental change because of AI. How many people have I seen glistening with amazement at what AI can do? But is AI emotional? Is AI spiritual? Does it have that ability to take us to somewhere else? To calm? To connect? Perhaps they can teach it to do that. Would that be a bad thing? Can't tell you, don't know. I'm just saying that as human beings, we have extraordinary communication skills. And we can read somebody else on a level of emotion, on a level of presence. And if the artist, or in my case here now, the artist storyteller, is doing that, reading that, then they are responding, most importantly, they are responding to a need. How many times I have sat in front of an audience of children who you can talk to because they are so open to it. And at the end of the stories, the moments, the journeys, the wonders, I just say to them, do you realize how two-way the storytelling is? And that is that concept I'm talking to you about. If it's two-way, and I know it is, if it's two-way, then they are gaining something. They may be leaving the room physically to go into the space of the journey. They may relax. They may just close their eyes. I've seen them, I've watched them. They may be in states of wonder, but they are in a place of, without putting too big a point on it, a place of healing at least, of relaxation, where they learn something fundamental, that this makes them feel good. They smile. They fall asleep. So all these things are connected with what I'm doing right here. And for me, that's where in my stories, most importantly, in my stories, where the dragons fit in. They are not fierce, dangerous creatures at all. They're extremely sophisticated creatures, animals, who have been brought into my world to protect one of the most fundamental things in our world, in our universe, which is the light. And that they understand that. So in my stories, even though it may seem it's a shame that they're not in the stories until book 4, they are not in the stories because it wasn't their time. So it was that it was the oracle maker who told us of the dragons, that they were beginning to wake up. And it was the architects who gave him the Mithra, the ancient oracle that was there when the light was first formed. So the oracle maker said that the dragons were asleep beneath the world, and they were waking up. And it was the artists who heard them first. They heard them begin to open their eyes and breathe, and the artist drew them. They became them. They understood them, and it was so that they became the dragons. They were inside their skin. They were looking out into the world, for this was the time of the light, and this, at last, was the time of the dragon.